Yo, what's up, boys, and welcome to a new Moonwalker Monk PvP guide for Season 1 of the War Within. So I've already done one, but a lot has changed, and I thought I'd make a new one, an updated guide. First thing we're going to talk about is going to be stats. And it is a little bit different depending on which hero talents you choose. So there's Conduit and Shadowpan. If we start with Conduit, I recommend to be around 12 to 15% haste, as we don't have Veteran's Eye from Shadowpan that gives us baseline 10% haste. So if you're then going Shadowpan instead, I would say you only need around 10% haste, as you do have that talent there. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be race. The best race for Windwalker Monks or Orc, as stun reduction is huge. Windwalker Monks only really die in stuns, as we are quite tanky with Diffuse, Wall, Karma, and Fist of Fury for parries, and also our port. The second best one is Gnome. With this meta at the moment, roots are huge. Frost mages are really good, ferals are really good, and both of those, they constantly root you. So being able to get out of the root outside of your Tiger's Lust and your healer, the spell, is huge. The third best is probably Dark Iron Dwarf or Normal Dwarf, as it removes bleeds, and as I said, ferals are really good at the moment. And also Night Elf. The Night Elf ability where you meld is super huge, as you can meld kidneys, stuns, and other forms. So if you can use that really effectively, it could be really good. But baseline, Orc is best, Gnome, and then Dark Iron Dwarf, Night Elf's kind of the same. But yeah, those are really it for races. I wouldn't really recommend anything else. Now we're going to talk about gear. So gearing is a little bit different. Some people do different than I do, but I'll tell you what I do. So first of all, with the stats, 12 to 15% if you're Conduit, 10%-ish if you are Shadowpan with haste, and then you go Rest Mastery. You want to get 2 set or no set. Both is fine. I personally go with 2 set. I have it on my chest and my shoulders, as it has the best stats on them for any tier set. With embellishments, you want to craft this pickaxe here, and you want to get the ascendance on it, and then you want to double the effect on another crafted piece. With the gems, you want the big gem here, if I can find where I have it on. I have it here. You want 181 primary stat and 5% damage reduction when affected by crowd control, because again, monks really only die in stuns, so this is a big benefactor for it. And last but not least, for enchants, Authority of the Depths is by far the best enchant. It can sometimes top your damage in arenas, so yeah, it is super huge. You definitely want to get that. Moving into our talents, this is what I'm rocking at the moment. I play Conduit for every single arena at the moment. I think the burst potential is super huge, and the wall and fortifying brew is nice. I sometimes dabble, so there's a little bit you can do here. If we start with the left side, you should play Detox into Hunters for the spell of Sting, and you can also play it into Rogues for the spell their poisons, and you can play it into Shadow Priest to dispel, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a big dot there that you can dispel as well. And with Shadow Priest being really good, you use this a lot. If you don't need it, if you're playing against, for example, Feral Frost Mage, you can instead take Bounding Agility, so you can travel a little bit further. You can take the duration of your snare effects and use reduced by 20% with Quick Footed, so you don't sit as many routes as long. And yeah, those are really what I recommend going into. Others I wouldn't really recommend. You can also do Energy Transfer if you're fighting double casters and you need the mobility for it. But otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't really take anything else. This is what you need. Clash is one of our best abilities. It has a lot of really nice usages, so definitely recommend always taking that. And Yulon's Grace is terrible nowadays. I don't know what they did. I don't remember they nerfing it, but it literally does nothing now. So even into Affliction Warlocks, where you have UA on you and it would take a big damage hit from Diffuse Magic, you still want to go with Diffuse Magic, as it is way better than Yulon's Grace. On the right side, there's a couple of different things you can go here. A lot of Windwarriors play different things, and I've also tried a little bit of different things here. So right now, I'm playing Memory of the Monastery, but you can not play this, and you can also not play Spirit of Focus. And then you can play Touch of the Tiger and Swen's Battle Gear. Some people also play Transfer of the Power and Swen's Bond. But I would recommend either. It really depends on your playstyle. I also like playing Swen's Bond, because I like having a little bit more damage when I Rising Sun Kick. And also, when you Rising Sun Kick, the target you hit takes 3% more damage from you. So with Swen's Battle Gear, it also makes you want to use Rising Sun Kick more, and overall you just get more damage. Memory of the Monastery is really good, because Blackout Kicks is usually your top damage, so that is also huge. And Charge of the Tiger is also good, because Tiger Palm is usually in your top 5-6 damage dealers, and having an extra 40% on that actually equivalents to some damage in longer games. For Shuffle, I probably wouldn't recommend taking Touch of the Tiger, but instead either Memory of the Monastery and Swen's Battle Gear, and then Spiritual Focus. I think Spiritual Focus is really good, but again, if you're playing Shuffle, I don't think you would have the time for it to come back anyways, because Shuffle rounds are really quick. So I probably recommend taking Swen's Battle Gear and Memory of the Monastery in Shuffle. If we're talking about Shadowpan, we'll just let it do its thing here. So yeah, here I also use Spiritual Focus and Memory of the Monastery. And with Shadowpan, it is a big Blackout Kick build, as we have this Blackout Kick deals an additional 20% critical damage and increases the damage of the next set of Flurry Strikes. So yeah, you really want to Blackout Kick a lot, which incentivizes this Memory of the Monastery talent. And that's really it for your normal talents. If we go down to PvP talents, these are the 3 you want. You never ever swap up Turbo Fist, you never swap up Rising Sun Kick, and you swap up Reverse Arm for Grab a Weapon. You can take Storm Spirit Strikes if you're fighting double melee, as it does a little bit of damage. You can take Wind Waker and this talent here if you're fighting Frost Mage and Affliction or anything else where you just know you're going to get kited a lot. You can try and dabble into that if you don't need Disarm. And you can also try to ride the Wind again into scenarios where you really need extra mobility and you don't need Disarm. But if you need Disarm, these are the 3 I would recommend. Rising Dragon Swoop is an insanely good PP talent, as it is just an extra interrupt that lasts almost as long as they're in the air for like 2 seconds. And it's really nice, you know, maximizing your Rising Dragon Sweep, your stun, your ring before even interrupting, so you don't have to change of precog. Yeah, that's pretty much it for talents, both with Shadowpan and Conduit. Now we're going to go to the burst rotation with Conduit of Celestials. First of all, we're going to do here is we're going to pop our Tiger. I'm going to speed this down for you for a sec here. So we pop our Tiger here for Swen damage and for the increase of haste. Okay, this is maybe a little bit too slow. We then go in, we Tiger Palms to get Chi up. We only need 4 Chi actually for this go. Then we Rising Sun Kick for the damage. And for the buff it gives, you can see here it says a buff here with each stack giving 3% more damage taken to the target. We then pop our images and Rising Sun Kick again to get the stack up and more damage from Rising Sun Kick. We strike at the Windlord to get Gale Force and the damage here. And then we use our Conduit, which we instantly press again. And then we let it fully channel. We end it with the Rising Sun Kick, again for stacks and damage. We then Fist of Fury to get Whirling Dragon Punch activated. We then Whirling Dragon Punch, and that generates a Spinning Crane Kick for us, which we then use. And we let this full duration sit. You do not want to cancel, so you don't want to press any buttons while it's going. Off that, we use our Blackout Kick, which we get from Memory of the Monastery for free. And then we can see I have another Spinning Crane Kick, which I then also use. And then when that stops, I'll use my Blackout Kick. So yeah, that's really the way to go. With your spinning crane kicks, if you can, you want to also stack them up. So it takes 18% more damage per target hit with this, with Dance of the Chiji. Oh, not with this one actually. Oh, that just does it baseline now. As you see here, spinning crane kicks damage is increased by 18% for each unique target you've struck. So you want to also, if you can, stack that up. And I was talking about Gale Force, which is this talent here. Targets hit with Strike the Windlord have a 100% chance to be struck for 10% additional nature damage from your spells and abilities for 10 seconds. So that's actually huge damage. We can see here, it did 2 million damage on that go with Gale Force. So it is huge. So yeah, that's pretty much the go with Conduit of Celestials. And last thing to say is, Conduit, it actually splits damage. So if you can, you want to isolate your target to get the maximum damage on the one specific target you're trying to take down. It does stack up damage per target hit up to 30%, but it does also split them. So yeah, you want to isolate the targets if you can. Moving on to Shadowpan burst rotation. So you can see here, I have built my flurry charges up to 10 and implode on next Tiger Bomb. If you can, this is optimal for the go, of course. But for the first go, you usually won't do it. You'll just use your burst normally with your images and strike the Windlord. But first of all, you want to get out your Tiger for haste buff and the damage of Swen. You then use Tiger Palm to make sure you have enough chi. You then Rising Sun Kick for the buff and damage. You use your images to reset Rising Sun Kick. Use it again for the damage and the added buff. You strike the Windlord for damage and the Gale Force talent. You then use your Fist of Fury into a Whirling Dragon Punch to activate a Spinning Crane Kick as well. And Whirling Dragon Punch does a lot of damage. And you then end that out with the free Blackout Kick, which you can then go into Rising Sun Kick. Yeah, that is it for the Shadowpan. It's very straightforward. Kind of the same, just without that one Conduit button. And if you can, then keep track of the Flurry charges, trying to implode them on the go. If not, it's okay. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be comms. So for 2v2, I would recommend a Resto Druid to pair with a Windwalker. It has super good synergy with its offensive playstyle with Rake Stuns and Clones. The next one I would recommend is both Preservation Evoker and Disc Priest. They both have a very, very high damage output and decent CC with Fear and Sleeps. And then the last one I would recommend is H-Bella. It has Hodge and Rep, and right now it is really good in the current meta. With 3v3 comps, I would recommend Elemental, Windwalker Monk, as we've seen in AVC. That comp is probably your best option as a Windwalker Monk. I think S-Priest, Shadow Priest, H-Pal is closely followed. And then some other ones you can play are Sub Rogue, Disc Priest, Marksman Hunter, Windwalker, Frost Mage, Windwalker, and what I've also played a lot myself is Destruction Evoker, H-Ball. I think that is actually also a little bit sleeper, where they can sleep off your paralysis and you have their stun and your stun, and it seems to have good synergy. But the only weakness is that it's not as tanky as the Elemental or Shadow Priest. Next thing we're going to look at is going to be add-ons and some useful add-ons for specifically Windwalker monks. I would use Weak Auras if it's Windwalker specific. The ones I use are, for example, I have Dispel, which is where I dispel the hunter's silence. I have Flurry Strikes to track my Flurry Strikes when I play Shadowpan. And I created recently a Knockback DR, which tracks whenever I've used my Whirling Dragon Punch and 13 seconds forward, because that's when you can use your Ring of Peace without it being DR. Otherwise, there isn't any... Oh, I have Touch of Karma as well, which tracks how much damage there's left on my Karma. As you can see, it has 3.76 million before it gets broken. And yeah, those are the ones with Weak Auras. I also use Tell Me Whens to track some specific buffs. We have Vivicious Vivification, which is this 10 second... Every 10 seconds you have an instant Vivify. Here I have Imperious Capacitator, which is when I play Crackling Jade Lightning build, I can see when it implodes. Yeah, those are the ones. I also have Freedom. And up here I have Blessing of Protection, but it's not really Windwalker specific. But yeah, I think those two are really good at tracking some buffs if that's what you want. Right now, we don't track that many buffs. But last expansion, I had a lot of buffs tracked with the TWW, so they can be a huge benefit. Moving into the last part of the video is going to be my tips and tricks for you guys. So yeah, let's just get into that. Okay, so the first tip I'm going to give you guys is with Striker the Windlord. So Striker the Windlord has a talent connected to it called Thunder Fist, where every enemy you strike, you will gain another stack of Thunder Fist. You gain 4 baseline when you hit something, and you'll gain 1 more per enemy you hit. So you can see here, I have the enemies here. If I Thunder Fist only this guy, I'll get the 4 stacks. But if I angle it, it goes like in front of you. So you have to angle it right. If I angle it here, I use it, I'll get on both of these. And therefore, I get 4 Thunder Fists and 1 already got used there, as you see. So I got 5, 1 extra. So yeah, it's really good if there's a lot of pets to use it when the pets are there as well, because you'll get huge amount of Thunder Fist. And you can see these actually do 100k damage each. So just passively, they will do a good amount of damage. And again, it's just for maximizing your damage. So for the second tip I want to give you guys is with leg sweep. So leg sweep range with this talent here, which increases it with 4, is 10 yards. So that's not a long stun. So the next tip I want to give you guys is with leg sweep. So leg sweep range, when you take this talent here, it is 10 yards. But for some reason, the range actually increases when you jump. So you should always jump before leg sweeping. I can show you here. So this dummy right here is kind of far away. I'm going to normally leg sweep without jumping. I don't hit. Fast forward 50 seconds. Okay, now I got it back up again. So I'm standing the exact same spot. And we'll see if I hit it when jump. Jump. And I do it and it hits. So yeah, for some reason, it increases the range when you jump. So you should always jump. The next tip I want to give you guys is stacking up spinning crane kick. So spinning crane kick can stack up to 5 times. And each stack does 18% increased damage. So you can see here, I have 1 stack. And this does, let's see, this does 63k on average. Okay, let me just reset these data here. I'm gonna build up the stacks now to 5. Here we go. And now we have 5 stacks. Now we're gonna do it. And we can see there already it was a way more. 135k on average. So over double the damage that it was before. So yeah, it's always worth, if you can, trying to build it up. You can do it on pets and you can even do it on totems. It goes away after 20 seconds, as you can see here. So when you do it on a totem, even if it dies, it still counts for 20 seconds. Next one I want to talk about is Rising Sun Kick. So we can see here, Rising Sun Kick, this acclamation. Rising Sun Kick increases the damage your target receives from you by 3%. So you should always go in and start with the Rising Sun Kick. You can see here, it gets a stack of 6% increased damage. So it's always a really good idea just to try and stack it up before your go. And then when you do your go, it's really good to Rising Sun Kick, and then images, they actually reset your Rising Sun Kick. So you can Rising Sun Kick, images, Rising Sun Kick, and then do your go of Strike the Windlord, Conduit, or if you play Shadowpan, the normal Shadowpan go. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is with Strike the Windlord. It has a talent connected to it called Gale Force, where target hit by Strike the Windlord have a 100% chance to be struck for 10% additional damage from your spells and abilities for 10 seconds. So you always want to Strike the Windlord on your go, because you just get 10% or more damage on your go, basically. So we can do a normal go here. I can show you how much Strike the Windlord actually does. Start the Windlord, and we'll see Gale Force here. We have 1 second left, and there it goes. So if we take our damage, Gale Force did 2.2 million damage. It's our 4th highest hitter here. So yeah, it is huge damage, and it's 100% guaranteed it does 10% more. So always want to strike the Windlord on the go. Okay, next one is Whirling Dragon Punch Knock Up DR. So we have gotten this Rising Dragon Sweep talent in the War Within, which knocks enemies up when you use your Whirling Dragon Punch. this DRs your ring. So this is why sometimes in arena where your ring just doesn't work and you're kind of confused about it, is because there's a knockback DR that doesn't show in the arena frames. That's why I've made myself a weak aura here. I can show you. So I use my abilities here and I'll Whirling Dragon Punch. And then this weak aura up here, 13 seconds counting down, and then after those 13 seconds I'll be able to use my Ring of Peace. Before that, it's gonna be DR'd, so it's just gonna they can just walk through the Ring of Peace. It has no effect whatsoever. The weak aura will cost me my Discord, which there will be a link in the description. Okay, so the next tip I want to give you guys has to do with the new ability we've got in this expansion called Clash. Clash makes you and the target charge each other, meeting halfway, then rooting all targets within 6 yards for 4 seconds. So this gives us huge opportunities for double stuns. We usually only had sweep to do it with, but it's way easier with Clash. I can show you an example here. So I have an example here of me playing solo shuffle, and you can see here I have my stun and I just got my Clash ready. And I already know what I want to do here. I want to stun the healer with the mage. And their range, so it's kind of hard getting the healer and the range to stack up for a double stun if you're not doing it yourself. You can see here, I go to the mage, I turn around because you have to face the target, I use Clash, and then I jump for the double stun here, as jumping makes the range bigger. You can also do this with Ring of Peace, as you guys know, we've done this so far, but we have 2 ways of doing it now. We have both Ring of Peace and Clash pairs perfectly with stun. It's a 10-second longer CD, but it's really, really effective with this method. So you can even do triple stuns with both Ring of Peace and Clash, or just use one of them. But yeah, it's huge opportunities, and I definitely recommend doing it whenever you have your stun, trying to go for those double and triple leg sweeps. Okay, for the next tip I want to give you guys is with Fist of Fury. So Fist of Fury doesn't hit as hard as it used to, so we really only use it to get Whirling Dragon Punch, and as a filler if we don't have other damage, or as a defensive to parry damage. So it's really good against double DPS, or I mean double melee DPS still, when you can just parry their attacks and still do a little bit of damage. We have this Turbo Fist where parry all attacks while channeling. And this is especially good in certain scenarios where you can parry some important attacks. This can be, for example, Kidney from Rogue. So Kidney from Rogue is their stun. You should always track this. I track this with Omni CD, so I can see when it's not there, I know they have it. And if I'm not on DR, I also track my own stun DR. I know they're gonna do it because as soon as they get it up, they usually do it. So what I want to do is I want to Fist of Fury there, so you can parry the Kidney. Same goes with Pharaohs with their main. I track that. If it's not up, I'm not a stun DR, I'm gonna Fist of Fury because I know they're gonna do it and you can parry it. And same also goes with Ardruid's Rake. You can also parry that. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits with Fist of Fury still. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's a really good defensive still. Another tip with that is also when a rogue or a feral is in stealth and you're hitting another target, you can Fist of Fury. And I usually do this. I turn my camera all around so I can try and parry their attacks when they go out so they don't stun me instantly. So yeah, that's also a thing you can do with it. So yeah, it's really good defensive still. Next tip has to do with interrupts. So interrupts have never been more punishing. With precog, it is super frustrating kicking and then not actually interrupting, but getting faked. So what I usually do is I will do everything else before I kick. And we actually have a lot of ways to stop kicks now. So you can use your Whirling Dragon Punch with the Rising Sun Kick here. Rising Dragon Sweep it's called. That will knock them up so they can't kick. You have your Ring of Peace. That will knock them so they can't kick. You have your stun. That will stun them so they can't kick. Paralysis. They can't kick. And then at the last, I will use my actual interrupt. So yeah, that's just also a tip. Do everything else before you interrupt. You don't use your paralysis and stun and clash if you have to use them for other stuff. But especially with your Whirling Dragon Punch knock-up, that is a really good tool to interrupt kicks without actually using your interrupt and giving the chance of them to get precog. The next one I want to talk about has to do with images. So images can be kind of frustrating to actually play with, as sometimes it seems they have a life of their own. They go on other targets than you want them to, and if you don't realize this, you're losing huge amounts of damage on the target that you actually want to hit. So you can see here, I hit this target, I pop my images, and they're suddenly on 2 different targets. And if you do your burst now, you're going to lose so much damage on the target you actually want to hit. So that's why you have to hit it again, and then they will go on your target. So when you pop your images, do that, and then you can see here, do that, and then do it again. So you make sure that they're on the right target. Next tip has to do with your spinning crane kick. So spinning crane kick, used to, you could just press it, and you could press another button in between, and it wouldn't cancel it. They took that away, so now it cancels if you actually press another button. So that's why you want to let it fully channel before even touching another button. So let me show you here again. I need to get a stack here. I'll get a Whirling Dragon Punch, and I get more of that. So you want to let it fully channel and then press another button. You don't want to interrupt it, as Spin Crane Kick is one of our best abilities this season. And it is one of those that does the most amount of damage. So let it sit fully channel. The next one is with Disable. So when you're fighting a warrior and he parries, you can actually disable the parry so you can hit through the parry. So that's a really good idea to do if they're kind of low and you just want to give the extra damage. They're still going to have 30% reduced damage, but you can hit them. You can also, if you disable them before they have a chance to parry, they cannot parry for that duration as well. So that's also really, really good to do. And another thing is, if a rogue has evasion up or a DH has blur up, you can incap them into a stun. Because when an enemy is CC'd, they cannot parry an attack. So a rogue will not be able to parry it even with evasion up if they're incapped. So you can just incap them and stun them. Or you can go behind the target if possible. But it's really hard to do as people are always moving arena. So a parry into an incap is pretty certain. That was it for my Windwalker Monk PvP guide. Hope you enjoyed, boys. If you did, give it a like. If you're new, consider subscribing. I stream over on Twitch, so you can catch me there as well. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, boys.